The Australian Summer School for Teachers of Mathematics was conducted at the University of New England in January 2008. 200 mathematics teachers from across Australia came to hear high-profile presenters give seminars, workshops and highlighted presentations on a range of issues in contemporary mathematics. Associate Professor Sandra Frid and Associate Professor Len Sparrow from Curtin University in Western Australia guided sessions to do with teaching in primary schools. They delivered presentations in 3 areas. The first was mathematics learning for becoming a numerate citizen, students as researchers, and finally Fermi problems. Len, I was wondering if you can just tell us what the main themes were of your presentations.
Thanks, Russell. What we tried to do was to set up the first session on looking at numeracy and then work from there onto how these things will be adapted into the classroom and the effects of these things on children. So we've got 3 presentations, but they're in fact all together. Now in that first one, what I was trying to do was to work with the teachers to try to unpack, to analyse what numeracy really meant, and later on real mathematics, because these terms are thrown out around us and we're not quite sure what they mean. Right. Or they mean lots of things to everybody. Yes. So we looked at that in particular. I then went on to them, particularly in that first session, to look at how you might plan your teaching to engage children in doing mathematics. And in those terms, I think doing mathematics is different from working through a textbook page. So looking at that doing mathematics. I wanted to get teachers really to talk about helping children connect, make connections between bits of mathematics they already knew, bits of mathematics which seem to be in different places, and the everyday mathematics they do, and the school mathematics. And that's really where we're bringing in the numeracy and the real mathematics. Right. So we're looking at pretty modern words, if you like, but trying to make sense of them. And then Sandra did a whole part of other things to follow it through.
So the first part of the afternoon was more than thinking about these issues and what we are trying to achieve, and then we followed up with a workshop with some real examples of how you might do that in a classroom, to do just what we're saying, engage the children in true mathematical thinking, yes. And making the kinds of connections, and a focus we took was on making connections to either the real world or at least things that are meaningful and relevant, because it can be imaginative things. They don't have to be going shopping and stuff like that. They can be things that engage people and motivate them to want to use the mathematics for their learning.
So how are these presentations connected to or relevant for contemporary mathematics teaching?
I don't think you can go very far into reading newspapers or listening to things on the television without meeting the word numeracy. I think it's used loosely. I don't think it's used particularly well in many cases. So it's out there all the time. And what we wanted to do through the 3 presentations was to be clearer what this is, what it means in classrooms, and what it means for children.
So what we were also trying to do was show them how these examples you might use in the classroom, they actually aren't just sort of fun and engaging and we all go home thinking that was, you know, what fun maths can be. It's actually showing them how you actually can use these and learn math skills and learn mathematical processes and mathematical ways of thinking that are the more contemporary views about what mathematics learning and teaching should be about. So the examples are, and there are things they can do. We brought in newspapers and junk mail and typical storybooks that teachers would have in their primary school classroom or could go looking for. And they're not necessarily math storybooks, they're other things. So it's, you know, what's around you in your world that gets kids interested in and is meaningful to them. So it's their experiences, and they don't have to be, as we said, the so-called real world. They can be other things that people just find are for their brains and their thinking, things they want to engage with.
You know, later on we actually worked with the teachers in what I called, well, I pinched this from Dutch mathematicians, what we call experientially real. So you're actually doing the mathematics, it's relevant to you. You're picking up, as Sandra was saying, the materials that children see every day. So it's not some strange thing about...
It doesn't cost a lot of money either. It's already there.
It's not the classic, you know, a train leaves station A and those things. This is real. And we worked with the teachers looking at a general model that could be used, and then we applied it, in our case, to chocolate biscuits.
I was going to say you were cutting up oranges into quarters. And
No. But the problem is the use of junk food in classrooms now is much more difficult. But there was no mention that we couldn't use junk food in a teacher education project.
So were there some key ideas and messages that you were hoping that participants would take away from your presentations?
Yes, when you gave me the questions, I sat down and I thought, how can I put this into sort of 3 or 4 punchy phrases? It might be interesting to talk to the participants to see if they got these as well. So message 1, help children make connections. And I talked a little bit about that earlier. Message 2, work as much as you can with real mathematics and real contexts. And these are real to children, and we looked at what those might be. And the third one, the big one, and these are all decisions teachers have to make every day. Avoid strategies, avoid practices, avoid materials that restrict children from thinking and restrict children from talking. So that's what I think I was saying. Whether they heard that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting from hearing the various presenters, this notion of having things that come from the real world and which are motivating and stimulating and enable the students to actually connect in their own living is obviously so important in mathematics. Sandra, just wondering whether there are any other things that you felt that you were hoping that the participants would
on that actual content part, as we're saying that the experiential, it can be fairy tale storybook, and young children, they're happy to do things with what the teddy bears are doing, grade 7s are. So, but there's other things that motivate, and sometimes it's purely the mathematics itself. It's just playing with numbers and big numbers and interesting things, nothing to do with what they're going to do at 4 o'clock after school, but it's something as they can experience it. You give it to them in ways that the mathematics becomes meaningful, and then the job is then not to just play, but to pull out the mathematics and make the connections to the skills and processes and thinking. And so going beyond that, though, what we hoped to get out of it was they can do this. It's really not that hard, and the resources are there. And they're not expensive, they're not hard to find. There's ideas on the internet, there's like I say, we use paper. We know how to do the things, and we hope we're able to share that with the stuff that's already there, or the storybooks that are often around it, and the ideas that children themselves bring, and the interesting questions that children themselves will have about the world.
So, am I right in saying that for probably a long time, maths has been done as a fairly insular sort of activity, that people do it by themselves, individually? And one of the things you're trying to encourage, when you use this word discussion and get people to talk, is that something that's being encouraged more and more in mathematics?
Oh, it has been for a number of years.
Oh, I'm an old boy, that's why.
I don't think there's anything particularly new that we're talking about. I think what we're doing is looking for the research-based evidence to say this appears to be working, and putting these ideas forward to the teachers.